Hello again, it's Hooves of Doom with another video. This is a topic of the week response to Vince Venturella. As always, I'll post the original video down below. If you check that out, there's plenty of other good responses, I'm sure, throughout the week. This week, it's about GW and the Warhammer community. And this really stems from some of the latest developments that GW has been doing. So last fall there was another topic of the week about GW's attempt at community engagement. I think at that point most of the responses were saying that they thought that the new things that GW was doing were fairly positive, but there's certainly more that they could be doing. The good thing is that over the past several months they've continued to push. So the gamers have really been asking GW to re-engage with the community for some time, and even though AOS pushed quite a number of gamers away, ever since the launch of AOS in July 2016, I feel like GW's just been making all the right moves. They've really changed and made quite a number of moves that are very positive for the community. So they've reactivated their Facebook pages for Forge World and Age of Sigmar, etc. They're attending more conventions. They're being a little bit, they have just more of an open presence. They're more responsive than ever to questions and queries. Warhammer TV a little while ago, this is what prompted the last video, was asking for feedback about what type of videos people wanted to watch. This is for the Advent calendar at the time. And something that maybe a lot of people aren't too well aware of, they've been supporting local AOS community, local AOS tournaments with prize packs, which is good to see them kind of get back into that space. And all this was before the recent news from GAMA, which is the Games Manufacturing Association convention, which is going on, or was going on last week or so, where GW presented a seminar devoted to community building. And a number of pictures have been leaked of a number of prizes and swag for tournaments for 40K. Of some form, and let's just call it a structured tournament system for Age of Sigmar. That's been a very a lot of people have reacted fairly strongly to that in the community, and I have my own thoughts on that specific possible point system. But this picture that I'm using for this slide is interesting. This is from Age of Sigmar's Facebook page. The not like the regular Age of Sigmar Facebook page, but like Games Workshop's Age of Sigmar Facebook page. And they are collecting questions, and they're going to give those questions. You can submit one question per account, or per person. And they're going to compile the questions and give them to the rules development team at Games Workshop. They're going to create an FAQ and give that back to the community so that a lot of these questions that people have can be answered. Personally, I never really had a lot of confusion, but a lot of people do. So I think everything that has been discussed, all the different moves that GW has been making in the past several months, these are very positive developments. Of course, you could argue that GW should have been doing those all along, and I think that that's a fairly, it's a valid point, I think. But now they are doing it, and they seem to be moving more and more in that direction. I think it's only good. I really don't see how you could argue it's too bad. There are some little kinks, possibly. I'm not really sure what to make of that point system. I'll be making a little bit of a video about where I think that's going to go. But I think I like what the community has accomplished in general. And I think that the community can respond faster and perhaps do things faster than Games Workshop can. I think the community, when it comes to a comp system, is better able to adapt a comp, if you want to use a comp, of course, than I think Games Workshop can. So I think in many ways the tournaments that have uh, seemed to have been planned over the past several years, those are very well structured events. I think that the community has done very well for itself. And I think in general, the community can do very good things. So it's true that a lot of different comps can make things complicated, right? For Age of Sigmar, if you have half a dozen different comp systems, and a lot of people don't quite know how to play without one, and so you get all these different communities across the states and around the world, and in the UK, that are playing the game differently. And I've noticed a number of Facebook posts where people seem to be kind of annoyed at that aspect. For me, I think that it's nice to have the diversity so everyone can play the game the way they want to play it. I think that's what Age of Sigmar is about. The minute you have an official system, you lose that. And I think that that's a possible negative consequence. But many of the complaints that I see aimed at Age of Sigmar still, and GW's new commercial strategy of releasing all these books and things like this, I think they're really throwbacks to the old gaming mentality. So with the new Stormcast Battle Tome that just came out, I totally understand that if you're a collector of Stormcast, some people are kind of annoyed at the fact that there's now multiple books. It's almost going into like the 40k direction where there's just like, what war scroll is the real one, etc., etc. I think a lot of this is just not that big of an issue. You can use whatever war scroll you really want, in my opinion. And the books, for all the purposes of the gaming, with the exception of the battle plans and the formations, you don't need to buy those books whatsoever. So same with like the big expensive kits. Providing the community can comp like the Star Drake and the Dracoff riders, it doesn't really matter how powerful they are, as long as it all balances out in the game. You don't need to buy that in order to get like an edge over your opponent. I think that's how fantasy was. I don't necessarily think that's how Age of Sigmar works. So that's a big difference between the old method of releasing whole armies one after the other. If Games Workshop can just come out every now and then with a new release, they released Skaven and Stormcast and Khorne, and they've kind of come back. It looks like there's another Khorne release this next weekend. They're nice looking models. I'm kind of confused as to why they weren't released at the time. That would be like my one issue is just like, I don't quite understand why they're spacing things out. It seems like if you had a model for a Slaughter Priest, you would release both versions at the same time. But clearly they're not doing that, and that's fine. But here's something I'm very excited for in general about a lot of these moves, and that is the different tournament mentality. I love the idea of what Games Workshop is doing for tournaments, and therefore I'm actually kind of excited to see what this, supposed GW structured tournament system is going to look like. Because what I hear from events at Warhammer World, I think those sound really cool. They're really narrative. They're not about just crushing your opponent. So when I was a wee lad, when I was a Warhammer player back in the early days, I actually did attend quite a number of tournaments, and I was somewhat of a power gamer insofar as I maximized my army purely on what worked. And I probably said this now a number of times in videos, but I attended the 2001 Grand Tournament in Baltimore, and did fairly well, but I got like the lowest in composition score out of 120 people, and that was kind of a shock. And so ever since then, I've kind of gone in the opposite direction. Like, I think it was like a pretty dramatic turning point in some ways, and a few years after that, my core gaming group absolutely disintegrated by by one player playing Necrons and no one else being able to defeat him because he just purely used Necron warriors and a couple monoliths. And at the time, having 80 Necron warriors on the field, you couldn't defeat it essentially. Especially since the other people in my group all played Eldar, so like none of their weapons worked on like the monolith, and they just couldn't kill enough warriors to keep them down. And it became kind of a problem. And I kind of, from then on, I really tried not to maximize things. Not because I don't pick things that are fun or good. It's just I would rather people enjoyed the game, and the Necron player ended up hating the game because number one, no one played against him, and number two, because he only had one stat line in the entire army. It was pretty boring. Even he recognized that. So it just, when I look at tournament play today, even today, it's you have one type of unit and it's a cookie cutter build, and they just take 8 units of the exact same type. And I'm a little bit critical of that. I like to play. So when I was playing these tournaments, I was a fairly competitive player. I like to think so. I only won a single tournament. I won sportsmanship at like 3 of them. But I'm trying to back away from that. And I like where Age of Sigmar is going, where it's a much more casual play. I would rather both players enjoy themselves in the game. I play to win, but I'm very happy to lose. Like I don't put a whole lot of emphasis into that. I'm not concerned at all whenever I lose a game. So from what I've heard of the Age of Sigmar tournaments, there's a lot of coverage of Holy Wars and those held at Warhammer World. Their narrative and their colorful scenarios, the tons of objectives, like a very diverse victory point system where the goal is not simply to crush your opponents. And that's what Age of Sigmar is about, as we talked about in just a very recent video about scenarios, about how the scenario can help balance things. And it's not about, my last game, for instance, didn't come down to really who won combat so much as who can maneuver and move around their troops better. So the new community that Age of Sigmar is developing, when I look at the Age of Sigmar Facebook groups and things like that, these are the community Facebook groups. You get the odd weird post or comment, but for the most part, it's a very relaxed group that just wants to have fun. And I'm very interested in attending Games Workshop campaign events if I ever can. But from what I've seen, what the local stores are doing for AOS tournaments just sounds like just pure fun. If I get a chance to go, I'm going to go. I'm going to try to win, but I don't really care if I do. I think the idea is just to hang out with other people that play and just enjoy the experience overall. So what would I like to see GW do in the future that they're maybe not already doing? I'm not very imaginative, so I'll go back to 2 programs that GW used to do that I wouldn't mind seeing again. And one was the Skulls program, which there's a picture that I'm using for this slide. This is like a mail order sticker sheet that I think it was like you spend X amount, you get a sticker, you put it on the sheet, and you mail in the card. And then you get a number of prizes. And I just pulled this out of my box from years ago. This is dated 2000. And I only got like 15 stickers, sadly. Never cashed it in. So perhaps the whole reason why I wanted to come back is I can, finally validate this card after so many years. But I thought it was a fun way to motivate people to buy from Games Workshop. Games Workshop does when you order from them. Sometimes you get like a little wrist badge or like a little bit of swag here and there. Some of those are kind of fun and useful, but not too much. Not an enormous amount of value attached. I forget how you get the stickers, like how much you have to spend per sticker. But on the rewards section, if you have 10 skulls, you'd get like a Warhammer of Sigmar, which is like a little, it's like I think a keychain or something like that. Then there's like a wallet and a couple keychains and an Imperial Eagle pin. So the 10-point tier, that's not that great. The 25-point tier, this is where it starts actually getting half decent. You get a 40k codex of your choice. That's not bad. Or they were cheaper then, I guess. You get a starter paint set, 9 paints, a brush, and 5 Space Marines. You can do the same thing for the Warhammer one. There's like a 40k one and a Warhammer one. And then you get, these two are really cool. Special Edition Bretonnian General. Or a Special Edition Space Marine Captain. Not bad. You can get a grass green tabletop gaming mat, a belt buckle, or an Administratum pen. That's kind of useless. The belt buckles too. That's not what I'd probably go for. For 50 skulls though, you get a carrying like an army case, a hobby and modeling kit, which I don't quite know what that is. 1 year subscription to White Dwarf. This is the monthly, of course. A Forge World Orc Warlord bust. Oh man, I remember that. And the Space Wolf Terminator Captain bust. Oh yeah. And then the Special Edition Space Marine Standard Bearer. Man, not bad. At 75 skulls, you get the Warhammer Fortress. Now that's starting to get pretty good. And at 100 skulls, you get 9 unreleased Adeptus Mechanicus miniatures. Oh man, I remember seeing those. And then 150, you get the Mega Paint set, 75 paints with brushes and everything, glue, flock. 300 skulls, Forge World Baneblade Super Heavy Battle Tank, like the original Baneblade from Forge World. Very cool, I think. I mean, you'd probably have to spend a mint to get 300 skulls, but that kit was, a couple $100 at least. So I think like once you get to the 25 tier and you start getting like limited edition models, that's not bad. So I wouldn't mind seeing something like that be reintroduced. Maybe. The other thing I think would be interesting, and this is what almost Vince was alluding to, and that's the old Outrider program. I was trying to find a picture of this and I could not at all without, I'm sure I have one in my old White Dwarfs, but too lazy to kind of go through them all to try to find one. And this was like the volunteer league, right? An Outrider is like a scout. And what the Outriders were, there was like some sort of application process. When I was at the Grand Tournament, I asked the organizer if I could become an Outrider, and he said yes. I just needed to like, complete the form. But it's a volunteer organization, and it was the type of thing where you go out and you do demos at like the mall or like a local gaming store. And you had to do like, I want to say 1 or 2 a month. So pretty sizable time commitment. But in exchange, you get like the staff discount on the products. Or something like that. It was some sort of discount. I keep thinking it's like 15 or 20%, but it must have been more than that. So anyways, those are 2 things that I could see maybe GW potentially doing at some point in the future. I'm really interested to see what they're going to do and different ways in which they can reach out and really interact with the community once again. I would love to see that. I like GW. They've kind of turned into like a corporate kind of giant, and I think that that's one of the reasons why they get a lot of anger and just kind of older players or people that are miffed about Warhammer Fantasy and things like that. I think that just the fact that they are the visible gaming company and the real corporate giant, I think that they get a lot of mud kind of thrown at them for that. But a lot of the anger that is directed at them, it's derived from passion. It's people that love the game and feel a little bit betrayed. I just have never really felt that. I always look at GW as they're making corporate. Whenever they make a choice or decision, I understand why they're doing it from the perspective of a business. Their number one is their people that invest in the company, and number two is the customers, in some sense. So those are my thoughts about what GW is doing with building a community. I'm really interested in knowing what they're going to do. Thanks for tuning in, and have a good one.